Once upon a time, in a cozy burrow beneath a big fir tree lived 4 little rabbits. In this quaint little home, life was a delightful whirl of merry adventures and cozy snuggles. Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and the ever-so-cheeky Peter were the heart of this charming burrow. Guiding their steps and filling their days with love was their wise mother, Mrs. Rabbit. She nurtured them with tales of joy and caution, her words a blend of wisdom and care. One such cautionary tale was about the garden of Mr. McGregor. She often warned her little ones, "Promise me you won't ever venture into that garden. Your father had an encounter with Mr. McGregor there and it didn't end well." As the siblings set off one sunny day to gather blackberries, the naughty Peter, with a twinkle in his eye, couldn't resist the temptation of Mr. McGregor's garden. Ignoring his mother's advice, Peter sneaked under the gate and began his adventure. It was a world of delight in Mr. McGregor's garden. The scent of fresh vegetables filled the air and the myriad of colors from the various plants was a sight to behold. Peter was like a kid in a candy store, his eyes sparkling with mischief and curiosity. His little heart pounded with excitement as he hopped from one vegetable patch to another. First he indulged in some fresh, crispy lettuces. The crunch was pleasing, the taste was refreshing, and the juice from the lettuce was a burst of flavor in his mouth. Next, he feasted on the French beans. They were tender and juicy, and Peter relished every bite. Finally, he dug into the radishes. They were spicy and tangy, quite a contrast to the other veggies. Peter savored every moment, every taste until he felt rather sick. Suddenly, in his quest for the perfect sprig of parsley to soothe his full belly, he encountered the menacing figure of Mr. McGregor. The sight of him was enough to send chills down Peter's spine. His heart pounded in his chest, and his eyes widened with fear. A wild chase ensued, with Peter dashing through the garden, weaving his way through the cabbages and potatoes. In the confusion, he lost his precious shoes among the sea of green. His panic was palpable, his breaths coming in short, quick gasps. Fear gripped him as he realized the danger he was in. Just when he thought things couldn't get worse, he found himself cornered and caught in a gooseberry net. His struggles were futile, his tears flowed freely and his cries echoed in the garden. But then his sobs caught the attention of some friendly sparrows. They chirped and fluttered around him, their tiny eyes filled with concern. Cornered and caught in a gooseberry net, Peter's tears caught the attention of friendly sparrows. The sparrows urged Peter to wriggle free and escape. With their encouraging chirps and flutters, the sparrow's advice was clear. Peter, realizing the danger he was in, took a deep breath and began to wriggle. He wriggled and squirmed, his small heart beating like a drum in his chest. With a final tugging push, Peter was free, leaving behind the familiar blue fabric of his jacket tangled in the net. The jacket was a small price to pay for freedom. But freedom was still a few hops away, with Mr. McGregor hot on his furry little tail. The tool shed was a beacon, a safe haven amidst the garden's dangers. Peter, quick as a flash, darted into the tool shed. Inside was a world of towering tools and strange smells, but most importantly, hiding places. Peter found an old can filled with water and slipped inside, his damp fur clinging to his body. Peter, with a burst of energy, managed to evade capture, hiding in a can filled with water. The sparrow's advice had saved him, for now. Exhausted and frightened, Peter ventured back into the garden, facing more challenges. The garden, once a paradise of fresh vegetables, now seemed like a labyrinth of danger. In his path stood a door, as tall as the fir tree he called home, locked and unyielding. It was an obstacle he hadn't anticipated, adding to his growing list of worries. Meanwhile, a white cat, sleek and mischievous, sat perched on a stone wall, watching Peter with gleaming eyes. She swished her tail back and forth, a teasing smirk on her face. The sight of the cat sent a shiver down Peter's spine. He was aware that cats could be as dangerous as Mr. McGregor, if not more so. But Peter, summoning all his courage, decided not to let fear dictate his actions. Just when he was contemplating his next move, a small, friendly mouse appeared from a hole in the wall. She had been observing Peter's struggles, and taking pity on him, decided to lend a helping paw. With her tiny voice, she squeaked directions towards the gate, the only way out of Mr. McGregor's garden. Peter, relieved and thankful, nodded at the mouse, his newfound ally in this predicament. The journey home was far from easy. Peter had to duck behind vegetable patches, climb over garden tools, and at one point had to hide in a watering can to avoid Mr. McGregor, who was still on the hunt for him. The man had used Peter's jacket and shoes to scare off other creatures, a sight that made Peter's heart sink. But with each passing moment, Peter's resolve strengthened. He was not going to let Mr. McGregor win. He was determined to reach the safety of his home, to see his mother and siblings again. And so, he pressed on, his mind set on outwitting the farmer. The journey home wasn't without obstacles, but Peter managed to outwit Mr. McGregor. Each twist and turn, each hurdle he faced made him more determined, more courageous. And while his adventure in the garden was far from pleasant, it was an experience that shaped him, teaching him the importance of listening to wise counsel and valuing the safety of home. Returning home, Peter found solace under the big fir tree, vowing to heed his mother's warnings. There's something about home that brings comfort unlike any other place, and Peter felt this comfort wash over him like a warm blanket. He was safe, he was home, and the big fir tree, standing tall and proud, seemed to welcome him back with open branches. The burrow was a stark contrast to the mayhem he had just escaped from, radiating peace and tranquility. As he nestled into the familiar surroundings, the scent of earth and the faint rustle of leaves above seemed to whisper, "You're home, Peter, you're safe." He felt his heart rate slow down, and the trembles of fear gradually faded away. He was back in his cozy burrow under the big fir tree, surrounded by the ones he loved. The bittersweet taste of the adventure still lingered, but it was overshadowed by the relief of being home. With the weight of the day's events sinking in, Peter made a promise to himself, a vow. He pledged to listen to his mother's warnings, to not let curiosity get the better of him. He realized that her words were not meant to limit him, but to protect him. They were born out of love, wisdom, and a desire to see him safe and happy. But as Peter settled down, a mystery hung in the air. His mother couldn't help but wonder about the strange disappearance of his clothes. His jacket and shoes were nowhere to be found, and the little rabbit was too exhausted to explain. The clothes were a small price to pay for the lessons learnt and the adventure lived. As night fell and the burrow grew quiet, Peter, all curled up, drifted off to sleep. The day's adventure replayed in his dreams, a mix of fear, excitement, and lessons learned. As he dozed off in the warmth of the rabbit hole, the tale of Peter Rabbit became a cherished memory. It was a story of mischief, danger, quick thinking, and most importantly, the comfort of home sweet home. Despite the adventure's toll, Peter's escapade taught him valuable lessons. As we reflect on Peter Rabbit's daring foray into Mr. McGregor's garden, we can see the wisdom that emerged from his misadventures. Peter, the mischievous rabbit, was a symbol of youthful curiosity, but his disobedience led him to a series of predicaments. He learned the hard way that rules are not mere restrictions, but guidelines set by those who care for us, aiming to protect us from harm. This is a lesson of obedience, emphasizing that wisdom often lies in listening to advice from our elders. Yet Peter's story is not just about obedience. It's also about quick thinking in the face of adversity. When confronted by Mr. McGregor, Peter didn't give up. He showed resilience, a creative mind, and an instinct for survival. Despite his initial mistake, Peter's situation demanded him to think on his feet, to adapt and to overcome. This lesson is a reminder that life will throw challenges our way, and it's our agility and resourcefulness that will carry us through. Lastly, the tale underscores the importance of family. When Peter finally returned home, he found comfort and solace under the big fir tree with his family. Despite his trials and tribulations, his family was there, offering a warm welcome and a safe haven. It's a gentle reminder that no matter the size of our missteps or the scope of our adventures, family is a constant source of love and support. In conclusion, the tale of Peter Rabbit is more than just an entertaining story. It's a narrative packed with life lessons about obedience, quick thinking, and the value of family. It's a tale that nudges us to listen to our elders, to understand that rules are set for our well-being, and to value the unwavering support of our families. The tale of Peter Rabbit teaches children the importance of heeding wise advice and understanding that rules are set for their well-being.